ريشي ساها اشتغل مع البرايم مينستر في انجلترا، وعمل على إدارة سياسات إعلامية كبيرة. رجل شكله يبدو صغير، he looks young، بس خبرته جدا كبيرة. الآن يشتغل كمستشار، وهو المدير التنفيذي لشركة نولتن، وأيضا مستشار لحكومات ودول ومنظمات. خلونا نرحب بريشي ساها.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. عذرا لعدم قدرتي على التحدث باللغة العربية، أنا فخور بمشاركتي بعربنت. That was the most nervous bit of my speech, so I'm much better now, actually. Thank you very much for those warm words. Just to introduce myself to any latecomers, my name is Rishi Saha. I'm Regional Director of the Communications company Hill & Knowlton Strategies. But until last year, I worked primarily in UK government and politics for most of my career, where I was head of digital communications for Prime Minister David Cameron at 10 Downing Street, running everything from our digital communications operation, all of our social media outreach, but was also very heavily involved in the development of our technology policies as well. And that's really what I'd like to talk about for the next few minutes. One thing I'd like to say is this, is you are all a very, very popular group of people right now. In practically every country around the world, as governments look to rebuild their economies, grow their economies, or diversify their economies, they're looking to technology entrepreneurs, to developers, to marketeers as the potential saviors of their economies. They're seen as a sign for national growth, for national innovation, and for the way in which they're going to build the next Googles, the next Facebooks, or the next Amazons right there in their own countries. So look, every government wants to be a part of this emerging story that all of you here are developing. And so whichever part of that group you're in, if you're a government organization, if you're a business person, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a developer, this is a great time to be here, and there are great opportunities, and governments clearly want to be part of that story. However, as someone who's spent most of my life working in government but now works in business, it's also clear to me that small businesses, technology entrepreneurs, really do need government as well. They need government to be helping create the ecosystem. They need government to be helping to create the infrastructure as well in which their businesses are going to thrive and develop. And so both sides really benefit when there's partnership, when there's collaboration, and when both sides can share knowledge, ideas, and learnings so that they both benefit from this emerging movement. What's interesting, actually, and obviously I've spent most of my career and life in the United Kingdom, but I'm now based here in the Middle East, is that there is an emerging consensus on the kind of activities that governments should be focusing on when it comes to trying to develop technology entrepreneurship. And I'd like to focus on, very quickly, 7 key activities that, from my time in government, were really, really important. This is not a definitive list. There are definitely other things in here. And what's also clear from this morning's presentations is that many, actually all of these things are well underway here in the kingdom. But obviously, we're only on the first few steps of this journey. So I think there's things that we can learn from around the world if we share knowledge and ideas. So very, very quickly, 7 quick things that together government and the technology enterprise system and ecosystem can work on to build a better partnership. First one, and this is one of the big areas that we focused on in the UK and that lots of countries are really focused on, which is around what are being called entrepreneur visas. One of the big challenges for economies in bringing in the kind of skills and talent, whether it's entrepreneurs, business people, or especially really high quality engineering and developer talent, there's a real issue around visas. And I know that in the United Kingdom and also in the United States and in many other countries, they're really looking at how they can change the immigration system and the visa system as well, so that if you are working in a high growth technology industry and if you've got demonstrable skills in those industries, your visa situation is developed really, really quickly. So what have been called entrepreneurship visas is a really big part of what lots of countries are focusing on at the moment. The second is what I guess I'll call government app stores. And really what this is based on is government data. This is actually the Saudi government portal for open data. It's a little bit small, so you may not be able to read everything, but you'll be able to see on this website open data covering all sorts of different sectors, everything from weather conditions to population, housing, to social services, to education. And it's often been said that data is the fuel for this new digital economy. And obviously governments hold lots of this data as well. In the UK, we also developed a very similar site to this that was focused very much on the publication of data. But where we tried to take this, and you can see this moving as well, is by creating applications, apps. Most of these apps weren't actually produced by government. They were mostly produced by third-party developers, entrepreneurs, but this was a government website that aggregated all of these applications together. And what we observed was that government has access to really, really important data that obviously the public want to know about. And if you can make applications out of this data that people want to use, and some of the example apps that you can see here around travel information, transport information, merging together transport information with road information as well to make people's journey planning a lot more efficient and effective. Right the way down to calculators for looking at, education results at different schools. So as a parent, you can start comparing different results. So the application of government data is a really, really important area. The market for health applications alone is estimated to be worth up to $11 billion by 2018, and that's just one vertical. So we can definitely see that applying government data and using government data in a way that helps government bring down the cost of doing business, that encourages more people to use services online, and also helps entrepreneurs find new ways to develop applications that the public wants to use, is of great benefit to both government and to the entrepreneurial community. The third area, which is less a policy area, but more a source of organization, is around informal trade groups. What's obvious is that the tech startup scene is built up of lots of small-scale businesses. Often very difficult to organize these businesses to work out, well, what are the issues that affect all of us, and how can we collectively talk to institutions to help get our point across? So globally, lots of these organic groups have emerged, which are now quite important in aggregating opinion from technology groups, and can also work with government as well. Actually, this event, ArabNet itself, is a great example of government and the private sector working together to bring technologists and entrepreneurs together. And they can also take on a really great importance in public debate as well. So there's a really big one called the New York Tech Meetup, starting out a few years ago just being a small group of entrepreneurs meeting together. Now it's about 30,000 groups. And it actually became so important that in the recent US election, both the Romney campaign and the Obama campaign published letters to this specific group to explain what they were going to do if they were made president for the technology startup community. You can actually find both those letters on the New York Tech Meetup website. So from very small seeds grow very large institutions. And actually, as a response to a lot of the informal groups in the UK, we created the Conservative Party Technology Manifesto in the run-up to the 2010 general election, because we recognised this is a really important growing constituency of people with lots of stakeholders. Moving on, this area is one that I'm really, really excited about, which is about the school curriculum. So look, I went to school about 15, 20 years ago, and I don't know about you, but the ICT training, information communications technology education in my school was amounted to this is how you create a Word document. And you know, for my cousins and nephews in school now, they often say that it hasn't moved on very further. But there are great organizations looking at how we can make coding and web development a core integral part of the school curriculum. There's a great organization called Coding for Kids in the UK, which is looking at ways in which they can get coding and web development into the mainstream academic curriculum, because you know, this is going to be part of people's learning in their lives you know, over the coming decades. Actually, one government that seems to be the real innovator in this is Estonia. Very, very small country, but has really taken the lead, some would say, on trying to mainstream coding and web development into the core national curriculum. They actually started this, rolled it out throughout all age groups from 6 to 17 last year. The scheme, as you can see here in the advert on the left, now my Estonian is even worse than my Arabic, so I won't try and pronounce this, but it's called Proga Tiger. But it's a great scheme. It's very, very scalable and very replicable to other countries. So I know that lots of countries are looking at this very innovative Estonian scheme to think how could they apply that into their own national curriculum. Moving to the second half of this, investment markets, and obviously one of the big talking points is that how are technology startups going to get access to finance and capital. It's clearly a huge issue for any technology startup or even mature business. So one of the ways in which organizations have tried to bridge this between angel investing and full-scale IPOs is, and I'm sure many of you know about this, the alternative investment market, which is like a secondary stock exchange. It's connected obviously to the London Stock Exchange, but it's a more informal stock exchange effectively, and allows businesses that maybe aren't ready for full-scale IPO to raise capital from institutional investors and angel investors. Obviously it's regulated by the London Stock Exchange and ultimately I guess by the government. But the rules surrounding being able to access capital are much looser. Started in 1995, since 1995, companies have raised collectively almost $40 billion, and about 2,200 companies have been able to access finance through the alternative investment market. So it is a great way for companies which are in that space where lots of companies fail or they end up selling out to an international company. And I think as governments are looking to try and grow businesses from being small businesses that sell out too early, in those years before they become full-scale, ready for IPOs, the alternative investment market provides a really great opportunity to access enough capital to move you to the next level. This area I call visible support, because obviously we've already looked at lots of what I would call hard policy areas that governments can develop. But some of the areas which government has to play a lead role in developing the startup community and developing technology entrepreneurship as a viable option is to provide political leadership and support as well for this community to make it feel like this is a job and this is a career that people can actually take on board. One initiative that the UK government has developed is called Tech City, which is all about taking what was an organic group of businesses based in East London and really trying to create a lot of noise and a lot of lots of activity around this community to bring in more investors, to bring in some of the big global companies, and to make it a real hub for technology entrepreneurship. And so this has been a really big part of the government's leadership in this area. And so visible support and offering support to the community is a really, really important thing. I would say it's possibly almost as important as any hard policy that a government could implement, which is about offering that kind of leadership. So for example, David Cameron, the Prime Minister of the UK, has been to Tech City several times, given lots of speeches to show that this is a really important part of our economy and we're taking this incredibly seriously. Inviting some early stage entrepreneurs and some application developers, as you can see from this photo, often very, very young people who are still on the first rung of the ladder of trying to become entrepreneurs, inviting people to Downing Street, using what I call the convening power of Downing Street to bring people together. And even trying to find ambassadors who can take this story about what's happening in UK technology overseas. It's not just about what's happening in the UK, but it's about taking this to other countries as well. And actually Tech City was able to get two very high-profile people to take the message of the London and the UK technology entrepreneurship scene to a big event in Silicon Valley. You probably recognize these two people. So they were very, very lucky to get Prince William and Kate as one of their first public engagements to take the story of what's happening in the technology enterprise scene over to Silicon Valley to try and make them aware over there that there are really exciting things happening in the UK. And finally as well, to be honest, this area probably deserves it's a section all to itself, and it's an incredibly important part of government's role in developing the legal infrastructure around developing technology entrepreneurships, and that's around intellectual property and patent laws as well. Obviously, if you're spending a lot of time and energy developing strong intellectual property, strong technological IP, you want to know that that's going to be protected and a legal framework exists to protect you and the innovations that you've created. What's clear across the world is that there's a huge issue with small businesses and startup entrepreneurs in developing the kind of expertise, legal expertise, and even just the money to approach lawyers who can give them good advice on how to address issues around intellectual property. I don't think there's any simple solution to this, but it's clear that one of the key areas that government has to focus on, and actually I would say that government needs to spend much more time focusing on intellectual property, because actually a huge amount of the debate is around financing, and that's absolutely correct, but the debate around intellectual property, I think, is an incredibly important one that only really government can take a lead on. There have been multiple reviews in lots of countries about how governments do this, but it's clearly an area that if you want people to spend time, money, and energy on developing great technology innovations, you need to provide the right environment that those people are protected as well. And government's really important in that. So that's where I'll finish. 7 things I think governments and the technology startup community can do to work together. Just one final thought. There are lots of people who think that government has no role in this, or that government only gets it wrong when it talks about technology and digital. But as someone who has spent lots of years in government and now works in business, developing technology products for the company I work with now, I can definitely see that this will move forward if government and business work together in unison. And I think that kind of partnership can make both stronger and really, really grow the economy as well. So thank you very much for listening. Shukran.